everybody. This is Skip Elsheimer, and we are doing the AV Geeks 16mm lunchtime streaming show. We just saw a film called Purifying Water that was maybe from the 20s or 30s. Here, let me mute this over here. So, that's how we used to purify water back in the, 90 to 100 years ago. Some of this has changed, some of it hasn't changed, but that was part of the Orgone collection, which was ultimately part of the Mogul Film Company collection, which was a company that was in New York City, and they had a film library that you could rent films, and at some point they donated all their films to Anthology Film Archives, and then it got split up to different places. And I just found out Anthology actually still has some of those films. We were talking when I was in Manhattan a couple of weeks ago. I was talking with them about that collection, and anywho, this next film is actually from the Craig Baldwin Film Archive, although he might have just sold this off. I just talked to somebody who I showed a film, with the fire department contest, and he said, "Yeah, I just bought that film from Craig." I was like, "Oh," so Craig is like sending the films for me to scan. Then he's like, "Do I want this?" No, and he sells it. So if you're interested in collecting, Craig Baldwin is a person who runs across all sorts of interesting stuff, and he has a collection that he's actively digitizing and then sending out the door. So here's London Medley. Enjoy.
London, city of 8 million souls, the center of which is Trafalgar Square with Nelson's monument. City that clings to its century-old customs. City of modern buildings and dignified structures of past ages. Metropolis where a streetcar is a tram and a policeman is a bobby. St. Martin's in the field. Ludgate Circus. At the top of the hill is the dome of St. Paul's. At the Horse Guards in Whitehall. Shopping tour includes Piccadilly Circus, Regent Street, Oxford Street, and Bond Street. Although only a few hours from Paris, London is proud of her creators of feminine styles. And of course, London is the capital of what the well-dressed man shall wear. historic Temple Bar, where justice has been meted out since time immemorial. The barristers still wear the traditional wig. St. Margaret's, Westminster, where Britain's social elect have been married for generations, yes, for centuries. Familiar sights are the wounded soldiers of the Great War and their sidewalk drawings, their musical serenades. Empire's tribute to the unknown soldier. We're at Simpson's and the roast beef's ready. The Londoner will tell you there's no roast beef like it in the world. The national dish, fit for a king and done to a queen's taste. No day is complete without a glass of stout, ale, or beer at a convenient pub. The barmaids are full of cheerful chatter. The proprietor, or governor as he is called, is a genial host and cashier. Hyde Park. London turns out here for a bit of... In the afternoon, at tea time, all London stands still. Business, big and little, ceases until the teapot is empty. We can add this chap to the list of unusual occupations, a street performer who hopes to attract a spare tuppence from the theater queues. If you want to get somewhere in a hurry, you board the Underground. Every Londoner is proud of the city's subway system. It's the finest in the world. o'clock in the morning, the famous statue of Eros, Piccadilly Circus.
So that was Fox Movie Tone, which was a newsreel company. Fox Movie Tone donated, or Fox basically donated all of their outtakes to University of South Carolina. I think they held on to their full newsreels, but they donated them to University of South Carolina, who's been scanning them, and they have a pretty great collection. And the outtakes are fascinating because there's all sorts of stuff in there. You see multiple takes. You see kind of stuff that, while maybe not interesting for the newsreel, historically it's very interesting. So there used to be a symposium called the Orphans Film Symposium that was held at University of South Carolina. And so we would go down there every 2 years, and they'd always show stuff from the Fox Movie Tone collection. University of South Carolina we like because not only are they nearby, but they've also donated films to us, stuff that was not part of their purview, stuff that was not related to South Carolina or their other collections, and so they let us pick them up. And so we've shown some of them here on the show. Also, you could notice that Black Hawk distributed that. So that was, Black Hawk, of course, was a film, home film market for collectors, and they would often create 16 millimeter and 8 millimeter distribution copies of things that had fallen in public domain or they had licensed. So there you go. All right, so behind me is a film set up on the telecine, and so if I do like this, boom. This film is warped pretty bad. I don't know if you can see it. Like right there, there's this warp. So I'm gonna have to sit and hold and see to keep it stable, because it'll run through the telecine, but it might not register the perfs, which means that the image is going to roll and be unstable. Yes, and I will use my finger. All right, so here is, oops, where is it? Handicrafts in Belgium. I hope it's worth it. All right, here we go. Enjoy.
Here in Belgium, one of the smaller countries of Europe, the tradition of fine arts and crafts has been kept alive by a beauty-loving people through both war and peace. Although Belgium is essentially an industrial country, agriculture plays a big part in her economic life. And with us today, the farmer is an important man. If it were not for him, wooden shoes in Flanders would be a thing of the past. But the farmer prefers them for his work in the field. So the wooden shoemaker still busy at his bench, carving out the same kind of footwear that his ancestors used. Today, modern factories easily produce these shoes, but this old craftsman fashions most of the wood by hand, taking pride in a colorful job well done. Yes, if you listen carefully, you'll still hear wooden shoes clattering in Belgium. Ask a homeward bound. The traveler no doubt found it in picturesque Bruges, ancient city of medieval architecture, canals and bridges, and home of many famous artists of the Flemish school. Bruges is the queen of lace, because through at least 4 centuries, she has preserved unbroken the tradition of the lace world. Legend supports the theory that bobbin lace originated here. Today, it seems that everyone in Bruges is familiar with the intricacies of lace making. Little children are early initiated in this art, learning the technique in school along with their 3 R's. Some of these girls will eventually contribute their handicraft regularly to the Belgian lace market, while others may continue lace making merely as a fascinating hobby. A few will go on to the normal school, where they'll learn to instruct classes in this exquisite art. Already those little women are producing acceptable pieces of lacework. They learn by doing, and by studying carefully the charts that the teacher provides for them. All the little girls enjoy the excitement of visitors in their classrooms. When one has the experience of age like Sabine here, the oldest lace maker in Bruges, she can work serenely without patterns. By now, the cushions, pins, and bobbins are second nature to her. Of course, there are all kinds of lacework, from the common to the fabulous. This large piece, designed and executed by the women of Belgium for the New York World's Fair of '39, is worth a fortune and represents thousands of work hours. A treasure in lace indeed. Some of the most beautiful tablecloths combine lace with fine quality Belgian linen. Through Flanders' fields of poppies, beyond the scenic beauty of Belgium's fertile land, where the farmer and his wife are active from dawn to dusk, producing a nation's food. On to the smoky horizons of Belgium's industrial center, known as Le Borinage. Factories here, of course, use the techniques of mass production. But in a country whose people are known for their love of beauty, the skilled artisan is still an honored man. For instance, Mr. Aubry of Beaufioul. Now, here's a true craftsman, the master potter at his wheel. He's a recognized authority on the ancient craft of pottery and is often consulted for his knowledge by handicraft schools in other countries. It may look easy, but only long years of apprenticeship qualify an expert. When the molded clay has hardened, Mr. Aubry paints his vase in the traditional muted colors. To set the color, the vase must then be baked in the pottery oven. There are tricks to every trade. This is the potter's handleman, whose peculiar skill confines him to the delicate task of fitting loops, ears, or holders to the various pieces of crockery. The finished objects are unique works of art, each piece individual, no 2 articles alike. That is the joy in owning the handiwork of a master craftsman. Liège, a large industrial city on the River Meuse in southern Belgium, is well known to Americans who read the newspapers during the 2 World Wars. Some of those Americans may not realize that the lovely Belgian glassware they are so proud to own was created in this region. For on the outskirts of Liège are the famous old Val Saint-Lambert glassworks. Here the hot breath of boiling crystal escapes from the gaping jaws of 42 giant furnaces, around which men must work rapidly, precisely. Glassmaking is the noblest of trades, and in the old days it was the only trade that a gentleman could adopt without losing caste. Today the glassworker, the blower, the cutter, or the etcher, is still a remarkable craftsman. It takes 15 years apprenticeship to make a simple glass. Here's a young executive of Val Saint-Lambert who will explain to you the 8 steps involved in the creation of a single goblet. 1. The raw piece of crystal as it comes from the furnace. 2. Blown in a mold, the goblet takes shape. 3. A new piece of crystal is added at the bottom. 4. This added crystal is pulled in the shape of a stem. The opening at the top for the glass blower's pipe remains till the 7th step. 5. Another piece of melted crystal becomes the base. 6. The base is carefully shaped and leveled. 7. Only now is the top cut off. 8. The brim is reheated, beveled and polished, and here's the finished goblet. Val Saint-Lambert is particularly famous for its cut crystal. The cutter, too, is a fine craftsman with many years of apprenticeship behind him. His hand must be as steady as a surgeon's, his eyesight as keen. These men are buffing and polishing his finished pieces. Now watch the etching specialist, whose delicate figures and designs enhance the scintillating beauty of the finest crystal. The showroom at Val Saint-Lambert displays hundreds of pieces, vases, bowls, goblets, and glasses, each of exquisite design and all of superior quality. These early pieces from the company's museum prove that the tradition of superb crystalware is an old one at Val Saint-Lambert. Yes, the tradition of fine handicrafts and the people's love of...
Well, that just ended abruptly. Yeah. Beautiful color. So, I don't know if you can see, that's film dirt. So what ended up is it was fairly stable, but it was so warped that it wasn't sitting flat on the optical sound head, so it was actually twisted a little bit, so the volume went down, but then you started hearing this sound where it was actually reading the frame line and making that sound. And I tried to adjust it a little bit, and I don't know if I made it any better, but eventually it was fine. But there you go. That was a film that was kind of talking about the wonders of Belgium and all their handicrafts and child labor. Don't get mad. Please don't get mad. But here's Don't Get Angry. Enjoy.
Have you ever been as angry as Susan seems to be right now? Do you remember how quickly it happened? Right in the middle of the game, just when you were having a lot of fun. And can you perhaps remember how you wished, as Paul does, that you could take your anger out on the person who made you angry?
Oh, no!
And have you too felt like throwing things or breaking them, as Carol does because she's angry at her sister Susan and at Priscilla? Everyone gets angry now and then, and feels like destroying or hitting something, as Eddie is doing. Feeling angry is a natural thing, just as natural as feeling glad or sorry. Things are disagreeable. They make you act and look as well as... But let's go back and see what made these boys and girls angry. Then maybe we can better understand what happens to us when we get angry. It all started in the park when Susan and Mr. Carol and their friend Priscilla were having a good time jumping rope.
You missed! I said I did! I saw you! It's not your turn anymore! It's Priscilla's turn now! You take her out! I will not! You stop turning at me, leave this on first. My turn. It isn't Priscilla's.
The argument with Carol made Susan very angry. We all have arguments once in a while, and it's natural to get angry. And so, when Carol refused to give in, Susan quit the game and went home. Susan nestled down on the soft couch and tried to forget her anger. But somehow her feelings of anger didn't go away, and Susan could not read or think of anything she wanted to do. The trouble was that Sue's anger was still bottled up inside of her. She felt as though she were bursting with unhappiness. How could she get rid of her anger? Let's listen to what she has to say to Carol.
Susan, may I borrow your tennis racket? I want to play with Priscilla. No, you can't use anything of mine. Not ever. I'm so mad at you.
What's the matter with you?
She's angry because she couldn't have her way when we were playing jump rope. She didn't play fair.
Oh, now wait a minute. Let's talk it over. Susan, tell me all about it.
Gradually, Susan is getting rid of her anger. Angry feelings should be gotten rid of one way or another, but always without hurting someone else. Let's leave Susan and her family now and see what made Paul angry and what happened to him.
Oh, I bet this plane will fly for 5 minutes. But it'll fly longer than Pete. Hey, be careful there, Eddie. Don't break it. That's Pete. Boy, wait till Pete gets here. We can take him out and fly him all around.
Hi.
Oh, hi, Pete. Look at the planes. Aren't they wonderful? Come on, let's go.
I'm not going to fly planes today. I'm going to play ball.
But you said we'd fly our plane.
I said I would, but I changed my mind. Besides that, Jack said I could play first base. We can fly planes tomorrow.
You're a heck of a guy. First you promise, then you break your promise.
Oh, so what?
That's a good...
The broken promise and disappointment have made Paul furiously angry. Things like this happen to all of us, and we're pretty likely to get angry. For a moment, Paul stopped and thought about going to the gym, where he hears Mr. Jackson working with a punching bag. But then he decided he didn't feel like going to the gym or like watching Mr. Jackson. So he went home. Like Susan, Paul wished he could forget his anger. But the more he thought about Pete, the angrier he got. You can see he didn't feel much like playing baseball. Nothing seemed like fun. The anger was still in him. He felt thoroughly upset. Perhaps we can understand better how Paul felt if we understand what happens to all of us when we get angry. It's as if suddenly many parts of our body work harder and faster. We feel great excitement. Hearts beat faster, and the blood seems to rush quicker through the body. Sometimes a lot of blood rushes to the head. Our face gets flushed. Sometimes blood rushes to the stomach. Anger makes us feel sick all over. Sometimes we clench our fists or bite our nails. Often we feel as though we were like kettles filled with steam. The angrier we get, the stronger the pressure inside of us. Like the kettles, we must find some way to let the pressure out. When Susan got angry at Carol in the park, she got all stirred up inside. And when Paul got angry at his friend Pete, he too felt as though he were boiling over with anger. But when Susan went home, she didn't let her anger out. And Paul made the same mistake. You can see that Susan and Paul would have felt better if they had found a good way to let the steam off sooner. Because it is important to let out our angry feelings, let's think of some different ways of getting rid of them. One way would have been for Susan to tell Carol right away that she was furious at her. Then she might have gone on turning the rope and waiting for her turn to jump. Perhaps Susan would have jumped so hard that she could have jumped higher and better than she ever had, and the girls would have admired her for doing so well. Or Susan could have looked for her mother as soon as she came home and told her all about her trouble. Talking difficulties over with friends, parents, homeroom teachers, or the coach are good ways to get rid of anger. If Susan had tried any of these ways, she would have let her anger out and pleasant feelings would gradually have returned. Susan then would have soon forgotten her troubles and gone on playing. Now, let's see what Paul might have done to get rid of his anger. When he passed by the gym, he might have entered. And then...
Hi, Mr. Jackson.
Hi, Paul. Boy, it sure feels good to get the old muscles loosened up again. But I thought you were going to be flying your model plane this afternoon.
We were, but Pete ditched me.
Well, how'd that happen?
We were just about to fly our planes when Pete decided to play baseball.
Baseball. Here, Paul, you want to hit the bag?
Had Paul started talking to Mr. Jackson as soon as Pete left him, or even decided to punch the bag, his disappointment and anger would have dissolved, and he would have begun to feel better right then. Perhaps as Paul pounded the bag, he might have thought it was Pete. Every swing was a swing at Pete. You think that would have helped Paul get rid of his anger? Anyhow, with his feelings taken out on the punching bag, Paul may have found that he wasn't angry anymore. That evening, Pete telephoned Paul to apologize for changing plans without talking first with Paul. He knew that he'd been wrong. When Paul told him how angry he'd been, Pete asked if he could come right over and work with Paul on their airplanes. So they had a good time together after all. There are other ways, too, of getting rid of anger. For instance, see what Eddie is doing? He is getting rid of his anger by drawing a picture of his aunt, who a few hours before had scolded him. His mother isn't home yet, so he can't talk to her, but he can make a funny picture of his aunt, and that makes him feel better. He's having so much fun drawing the picture that he forgets all about his anger. Perhaps you, like Carol, can imagine dreaming up a story about animals or people that would help you get the anger out of your system. All these are good ways to get rid of anger. They free us so that we can start having fun again. You see, the important thing is to let out our anger in some active way, by running, or jumping, or hitting the punching bag. But we must be sure that we don't hurt or make others angry. Because if we remember what happens inside of us when we get angry, we'll be more careful about making others angry. And perhaps, too, when we get angry, we'll think of the best ways to work our anger out of our system. Can you remember some of the good ways that helped Susan and Paul get rid of their anger? What would you have done if you'd been Paul or Susan?
I like kids who are fake angry. Also, the drawing of his aunt who was mad at, and then the destroying the clay. Angry. All right, so I got another film set up on the telecine. Hey, Rudy, thank you for the coffee. Coffee is one way. Donating coffee is one way that you can support AV Geeks, because we love caffeine here. So you can go to buymeacoffee.com/avgeeks. You can also hit like. Like is a great way to tell the grand computers that run our world that AV Geeks deserve to live and to be shared. So those are two ways you can help us. All right. So anyways, what is this one? I don't know what this film is about. It's Let No Man Regret is what it says on the can. So who knows where we're going with this. Enjoy.
And what, may I ask, is a dear little cupcake like you doing with nasty old school books? My dear child, we haven't had school or books in ages.
No school? Really?
Why don't you get rid of that school book? You can drop them in here.
It'll get all burned up in there.
Well, of course it will, dear child. And so it should. Books tamper with man's basic, natural ignorance. Now, what could be worse than that?
But I can't burn this book. It's school property.
Nonsense! Apple sugar. You just need to get into the mood.
Books are not where it's at, teaching you how to spell cat. I know you'd rather play, so why don't you throw all your books away? Books are made for burning, the fire is already yearning to put an end to any learning.
1, 3, 5, 9, throw them in the fire's right.
Put the books in the fire, see the flames growing higher. Burning books is our heart's desire.
2, 4, 6, 8, time to incinerate.
Books will not make you wise, and reading's bad for your eyes. I am sure you agree, so why don't you give all your books to me? Books are made for burning, fire is already yearning to put an end to any learning.
This one here is very good about a man named Robin Hood.
Put the books in the fire, see the flames growing higher. Burning books is our heart's desire.
Though I never liked Tom Sawyer, I won't be a book destroyer.
Books can only confuse, teaching you things you can't use. You should listen to me. Burning your books will set your mind free.
Books are made for burning, fire is already yearning. Put it into any learning. Put the books in the fire, see the flames growing higher. Burning books is our heart's desire. Books are made for burning, fire is already yearning. Put it into any learning. No, stop!
Stop. I hadn't counted on showing that, but it seemed to hopefully soften the or buffer the blow of Let No Man Regret. I really had no idea what that film was about. Although right off the bat, it is a common trope. A lot of films from the late 60s, early 70s, a lot of student films too, exact same thing. They show beautiful landscapes and beautiful stuff, and then they just show garbage and trash, and they show the disregard the basic natural human ignorance regarding their environment. Anyways, thanks for tuning in today. Boy, we covered lots of different things today, I love that. I love when we do that. I'll be back again tomorrow, 1 o'clock. You can buy some coffee to support our habit, our caffeine addiction. You can also go to avgeeks.com and see other shows that we've been putting online, and hit like or subscribe, or tell friends to kind of tune in, or enemies to tune in, because we love it. We will see you tomorrow. Please rewind and love each other, and we will see you soon. Everybody take care.